Hey Firebirds. So I had already started reading this book, and then my phone rang, and it messed the video up, so we're going to try this again. All the information to this book will be down in the description below. This is Waveborn by my friend Michaela Whitaker. I hope you guys don't mind the air conditioning sound in the background. It is 80 degrees outside, and I'm going to do soft-spoken anyway, so I figured it'd be alright. So this is part of a 4-book series. Some of the books are going to be novellas, but she might make them into full novels. She hasn't decided yet. So if you guys really like this book, make sure to go and show your support. This book is available on Amazon. My friend is only 20 years old, and she wrote a whole book. So if you guys like this, please show her some support, and keep an eye out for the rest of the series. Waveborn, Michaela Whitaker. To the Dreamers. Chapter 1. Ocean Boulevard, which ran parallel to the 10 miles of oceanside property along the length of the city, was home to many resorts, restaurants, and the infamous Skywheel, offering tourists and residents alike a stunning view of the sea from high in the air. But Ocean Boulevard wasn't just home to these sights. It was also home to a 3-bedroom beach house hidden between 2 large skyscrapers. There, at 305 South Ocean Boulevard, sat my grandmother's old cottage, with its blue-green shutters sitting stark against the tan siding of the exterior. This was my new home, complete with half an acre of lush grass and a wooden gate that led straight to the powdery white sand overlooking the sea. When I entered the beachside cottage, I felt the real mahogany flooring underneath my feet and the wood cabinetry in the kitchen across the room. I had immediately fallen in love with the open floor concept when I visited it years ago when my grandmother was still alive. Smiling to myself, I walked back out to grab my luggage. The moving truck would be here soon, and I was lucky to have convinced them to help me move all my furniture and appliances. There was no way I'd be able to do that all on my own. Good thing I didn't have a lot of belongings. I guess this would only take me an afternoon to set up my entire house. Afterwards, I planned to organize my guest bedrooms, filling them with comfy blue and white comforters and tons of throw pillows. Not that I planned to have anyone over to sleep in the guest rooms, but who knew? I could always rent out a room to someone in the future. Once I hung up my clothes in the closet, I heard a loud sound of a horn. Pulling the last shirt onto the hanger, I set it on the hook in the closet and turned to walk back outside into the sea breeze in order to greet the movers who had helped me this afternoon. As I was locking the front door in its open position, my phone rang, letting out a soft tune before I made a grab for it out of my back pocket. I had texted my mother's best friend Claire earlier to let her know I had arrived safely. She had responded immediately, pleased that I had kept my word and gotten in touch with her. She offered to send her son John to help me unload my furniture if it got to be too much for me. She had moved to South Carolina years ago. I had spent summers up there whenever I could. John had always been a brother to me, and didn't mind showing me all the different things we could do on the coast. I guess that was one reason I'd fallen in love with the ocean, the peace I felt and the desire to protect it all. Hey, Claire, I said, answering the call. Hello, dear. I was just wondering how you were getting on. Has the truck arrived yet? Do you need John to come help? She drawled on the other end of the line, her southern accent hanging on every word. Oh, what great timing. The truck has just arrived. If you're sure John won't mind coming over, I can give you the address, I commented, smiling to one of the movers as he waved, walking around the back of the truck to unlock the door. I'm sure the guys would love to have an extra pair of hands. 1 second, she said in her cheery voice, before she yelled at her son to get his big butt off the couch and help me move. I couldn't hear John's response from the background, but before I could ask her what she said, Claire spoke again. He'll be right over, dear. All right, I said. If he's sure, tell them I appreciate the help, and he'll be able to park in the driveway. There's plenty of room. He'll see you soon, she giggled at something I couldn't hear before hanging up. Good news, boys, I called to the mover, shaking my head before stuffing my phone back in my pocket. Not only do you have me, but my friend who is on his way to help too. We don't have to wait, though. We can start now if y'all want. One of them nodded as he came behind me with a box. Whatever the box is labeled, please set it in the designated room. All right, ma'am, said one of the men. He wore a black t-shirt and a pair of jeans and was carrying a box labeled Dishes in big black letters. Just as I was about to grab another box, someone pulled into the driveway next to my blue truck. The white truck seemed to be identical to my own except for the color. The driver got out, messing with the cuff of his shirt before throwing a baseball cap on, sunglasses resting on it just like his father always did. "Hey, Annie," John greeted as he came towards me, pulling me into a tight bear hug, just as he did every time he saw me. I had to admit, John was attractive with his fiery red hair that emphasized his pale skin that he had inherited from his mother. I had always seen him as a brother, though, even though his mother had always wished we would get together. "How have you been?" It's been years, and I was wondering how my baby sister was doing." His blue eyes sparkled when he said this. Smiling down at me, he shielded his eyes from the sun. "I'm older than you, John," I said matter-of-factly, resting my hand on my hip and looking at him teasingly. "And aw, you miss me?" "I'm still taller than you, so that makes you my baby sister." I laughed. "Whatever, Johnny," I teased. "All right, are you ready to get to work?" "I told you I hate that name," he hissed, only half angry. He looked back at me before reaching over to ruffle my hair, but failed when I swatted his hand away. "And yes, Anna, I'm as ready as I'll ever be." "All right, let's do this," I said, ignoring his comment as I grabbed a box from the trailer. While John helped one mover grab the wooden china huts that had been my grandmother's and then my mother's before they'd passed it on to me. "Where would you like this?" they asked, passing me. "Oh, just sitting along the wall in the living room," I said. As I set the cardboard box on the kitchen counter. In a few hours, we had all the furniture and appliances set up in the house. All I had left to do was put away my belongings, then grab groceries at Walmart. Grabbed my wallet from my purse. I handed the movers a 20 and then waved them off as John turned to me. "Thank you, John, for your help," I said, looking him in the eyes. I smiled appreciatively. "You're welcome," he smiled. "Do you need help unloading the boxes?" If you want to." "I'd be happy to help my baby sister with her boxes," John said as he walked back inside and shut the door behind us. "Oh, hush," I called, following him. "I hate it when you tease." "You know you love me," he shot back with a grin, opening one of the many boxes that lined the kitchen counters. 2 hours later, we finished decorating my home, filling the kitchen with all of its utensils and dishware, furnishing each bedroom with its respective dresser, bed, and bedding. Plopping down on the couch, I closed my eyes in contentment as I sighed, enjoying how my home looked and felt with me and my belongings in it. I looked up at John, who was lingering in the front entryway. "Thank you again, John." "You're welcome. If you need nothing else, I think I'm going to head home," he said, walking towards the door. Jumping off the couch, I grabbed my wallet and turned to John, throwing a tin in his hand before he could open the door. "Oh, no, you don't need to pay me," he said. He protested, trying to hand me back the money. "Are you sure?" he asked. "That was like 5 hours of work. My mother would kill me if she found out I accepted money from you," he mumbled. "It's fine, really." "Okay," I replied, sticking the money back in my wallet. "Well, have a safe drive." "Thanks," he smiled before hugging me quick and opening the front door to leave me alone in my new home. As the silence began to fill the room, I felt my mind begin to wander to places I wish I would no longer think about. My nightmares of my parents' deaths. Suddenly, without thinking, they filled my vision, holding me captive as I remembered the day of my mother's crash, the devastation coursing through me when she was pronounced dead at the scene, and I had no idea I would lose my father a year later to cancer. I bit back the sob that threatened to escape my trembling lips and breathed in, desperately wishing I wouldn't think about them anymore, even though my heart ached to see them again. I wanted to hear their laughter and smell my father's familiar aftershave. I wanted to take our monthly camping trip again. I wanted them here. When I heard John's engine turn over, I grabbed my purse and the grocery list I had made earlier and exited my beach home, locking the door behind me. Throwing my purse onto the passenger seat, I quickly crawled into the driver's seat and shut the door. I started the truck, the roar of the engine making me smile before looking behind me at the sea and driving into town. I knew at that moment that this is the start of a new adventure, one that I couldn't wait to see what would happen next. With a large huff, I dropped the 7 sacks on the dining room table, sweat dripping down my forehead. The weight from the groceries leaving my arms. Man, that was a lot. I didn't realize just how much I actually needed until I got to the store. Filling a kitchen in one day is rough. Before emptying the sacks, I turned the television on, and the news played through speakers that John had helped me set up. I looked up as the news crew talked about the weather and the swell report for today's surf. I knew one of these days I would learn how to surf. I couldn't wait to get started. Maybe after I finished with my groceries, I could take a dip in the cool ocean that my home faced. Shutting the fridge, I folded all my cloth sacks and set them near the front door before heading to my bedroom to change into my swimsuit. Peeling off my clothes, I quickly changed and grabbed my beach bag from the closet. Throwing a towel into it, I padded into the kitchen to grab a few water bottles. Suddenly, my stomach growled, urging me to eat something before I did anything else. Shaking my head, I made a sandwich, eating it in silence, while I looked around the room, admiring the overwhelming amount of beach-themed decor that filled my home. After years of collecting them, I could finally use them. I still wanted to go swimming, but knew as soon as the sun was gone it was dangerous to swim alone. After I ate, I slid the glass door open, stepping outside, opening the wood gate that would lead me to the white sandy beach behind my house. I instantly felt more at home than I ever had before. Pink and orange hues danced across the water, beckoning me closer to the stretch of the water behind my home. My feet squished into the partially wet sand. Tiny seashells littered the ground below me, leaving the unique print in the sand as I walked around them before my feet touched the water. Crawling towards me. Laying out my towel, I spun back to the water, grinning as I ran towards it. Within moments, I was neck deep in the water, smiling happily while the waves rose and broke around me. I felt absolutely free here. That was, until I felt something scaly brush against my leg. I felt my heart stop as panic set in, staring down into the dark water while I tried to see what had just touched my leg. Within seconds, whatever I had touched before brushed against my skin again, making me lose my footing and drop fully into the water. I let out a scream, only for it to muffle as the water cascaded over my face. Kicking my legs, I surfaced as quickly as I could, spitting out the salt water as I drew in quick, panicked breaths. Looking around, I tried to swim away from the spot, feeling a little uneasy. I knew I shouldn't be scared. It was probably just a fish, but in the pit of my stomach, I wasn't exactly sure what this creature was. I knew from experience that sharks didn't have that texture on their body. "Hello," someone called near me. I turned towards the low voice, finding myself face to face with a man I had never met. His eyes were silver, nearly white against the white of his eyes, and his long black hair was wet, sticking to his head. The water seemed to calm around us. "Are you all right?" he asked. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. His brow furrowed in confusion filling his features. "Do you understand me?" All I could do was nod, knowing that he shouldn't be here. This was a private beach, and he was trespassing. "Can you speak?" he persisted, swimming closer to me. I felt the scaly creature brush up against my leg again. Panic consumed me as I swam away frantically. "It's all right. I will not hurt you." "What? Why are you here? You aren't supposed to be here. This is a private beach," I rasped, panic lacing my tone. "Is that a fish? Why keep brushing against me?" "I think it's just a fish," he replied. "Okay, well, I would be mindful of where you swim next time," I said, making my way toward shore. "Wait," he called. "What's your name?" I turned, the water up to my waist, and smiled, unsure of what to tell him. I didn't want him to know my actual name was Anna, so I gave him my nickname instead, Annie. I watched as he mouthed my name back, a hint of a smile on his face, before I turned around and walked onto the shore, feeling the water run down my legs and seep into the cooling sand. Grabbing my towel off the ground, I dried myself. Glancing back out to sea, I realized instantly that the man who had just shown up unexpectedly, who I had just spoken to moments before, was nowhere to be seen, almost as if he had never been there. All that was left were the waves crashing onto shore. Confused, I stared into the ocean with my wet hair clinging to my shoulders and face, wondering if something had happened to him or if the creature had pulled him under, but he hadn't called out as if he was in trouble, and I would have been able to hear him if that were the case. As I started, I wondered if I would ever see the mysterious man again, or if he was just a figment of my imagination. I remembered the feeling of the scaly creature brushing up against me, and how quickly the man had arrived straight after it happened. I shook my head. I knew that what I was thinking wasn't likely, was crazy even, but only 5% of the Earth's seas had been explored. He couldn't be a merman. It had probably just been a fish. I was being ridiculous. There was no such thing as mermaids. They were just stories and nothing else. When I started back out to sea, I saw the faintest sign of a fluke breaking the surface, right before it disappeared back in the sea. Chapter 2. The faucet let out a loud squeak as I turned the shower on. Within seconds it sprung to life, water pouring out of the shower head, filling the bathroom with steam. Peeling my bathing suit off, I dropped it, letting it fall to the ground with a wet flop before stepping into the tub. I pulled the shower curtain closed and turned towards the water, walking on the waterfall, feeling the sand and salt leave my body, spiraling down the drain. With a sigh, I felt my muscles relax, and I closed my eyes in contentment. As the moments ticked by, I stood under the water for longer than I probably should have before I made my move to grab my shampoo. Pouring a generous amount into my palm, I kneaded the substance into my natural ginger hair, which seemed to be darker in the water. Scrubbing until suds covered my hands and arms, I washed the soap away, hoping that I could get all the sand out, although I knew some grains would still stick to my scalp no matter how many times I washed my hair. had this gnat flying around my house forever. After my shower, I grabbed a large blue towel from its hook and wrapped it around myself, my hair falling in curly ringlets past my shoulders. Padding into my room, I hoped I wouldn't slip and fall, then realized that was probably the least of my problems because I had forgotten to close the curtains before a shower. Closing the bedroom door behind me, I sighed, padding over to the large window overlooking the sea and pulled the curtains close, accidentally letting my towel fall to the floor. "Really?" I exclaimed to no one in particular, before reluctantly picking up the towel and drying my body before wrapping my hair up in it. Walking over to my dresser, I pulled out my comfy set of silk cami pajamas and slipped them on. The sun was beginning to set by the time I walked into the kitchen to make myself some dinner. The pink and purple hues lit up the sky and reflected across the water as the sun escaped behind the horizon. Smiling to myself, I made myself a quick sandwich and headed out to the back porch, where a lawn chair sat waiting. Easing down into the chair, I stared at the sunset, watching the colors dance across the waves in perfect harmony. I had a week off before I started my new job at the Marine Life Institute in Myrtle Beach, and I was determined to make tomorrow a worthwhile and fun experience. I would visit every store, learn to surf, maybe even catch my first wave, but I knew I wanted tomorrow to be the most memorable start to my new life. I hoped the weather would stay like today's beautiful 80 degrees. As I ate, I listened to the calming sound of the waves, relishing the peace I felt at that moment. I enjoyed having the ocean so close to my home. In minutes, I finished eating and walked back inside to wash my plate. After setting it on the drying rack, I walked throughout my house to shut off all the lights, taking my time and admiring my new space. By the time I crawled into bed, I was exhausted. I felt my body relax once more, my eyelids growing heavy as the calming pull of sleep overtook me, and I fell into a dreamless sleep. I awoke to a soft sea breeze blowing through my open window, the curtains blowing in the wind, while the room filled with the smell of salt and sea. I blinked twice, trying to ease my grogginess of the sun as the sun shone through the window across my face. Yawning, I sat up in bed, letting the covers fall into a heap on my lap. I crawled out of bed and padded over to the window, opening up my curtains fully so that I could have a better view of the outside world. The sky was as blue as it could be, and the water was just as gorgeous. A chime from the bedside table took my attention from the sight of the sea over to my phone. Grabbing the device off my bedside table, I turned it on, slid my finger across the screen to turn it off, and smiled, knowing that today was going to be a perfect day. I shimmied out of my pajamas and threw on a pair of denim shorts and a light blue tank top over my purple and pink bikini swimsuit. My favorite thing about being in a beach town was that I could wear my swimsuit into town and no one cared. Making my way into the kitchen, I grabbed a banana off the counter and munched on it while I made a mental list of things I wanted to do today. Once I finished, I dropped the banana peel into the trash can and threw a water bottle into my swim bag. I combed my hair with my fingers, grabbed my purse and keys, and then threw on a pair of my sandals, and was out the door without a second thought. Locking the door behind me, I hopped into my truck, ready to spend time in the city I was now a resident of, and planned to live in for the rest of my days. By the time I made it there, the parking lot of Ripley's Aquarium was packed. It was understandable, as it was June, and right in the middle of the busiest tourist season the city hosted every year. Shutting my car off, I pulled my purse out, leaving my beach bag on the passenger seat, and slammed the door behind me. Following the wave of tourists, I waited patiently behind a woman with her toddler, silently hoping I could enter the aquarium in a timely manner. After 30 minutes, I finally made it inside. The lady behind the register smiled, greeting me as I walked forward. Smiling back, I requested a ticket to the aquarium, knowing that there were several exhibits within this one building. She only nodded before ringing me up and handing me my receipt. "You can just go through those doors," she said, motioning towards a pair of glass doors to my left. "Thank you," I exclaimed before heading through the double doors and making my way into the aquarium. Soft blue lights illuminated the room, dark as to not disturb the sea creatures inhabiting the surrounding tanks. I watched silently as stingrays swam along the sand, throwing it as they skidded across. A clownfish darted around a sea anemone, moving in and out of its tentacles several times, or swimming along the coral. I remembered the first time I had ever visited an aquarium. I was 12. I had been dying for my parents to take me ever since the aquarium opened. At such a young age, I was entirely captivated by sea creatures, and I knew that when I grew up, I wanted to spend my life dedicated to protecting them. That was what I had been trying to do ever since. An hour passed faster than expected, so I left the aquarium without seeing every exhibit. I had scheduled my first surf lesson with the Surf City Surf Shop. That's a tongue twister. Across town at 1 o'clock. and had just enough time to drive over there and look around their store before it was time to take my lesson. I made my way back to the truck to begin the 8-minute drive back towards the sea. As I entered the surf shop, the soft sound of the radio greeted me. Rows and rows of swimwear, wetsuits, and surfboards filled the store's interior, along with, of course, ankle leashes, surfboard wax, t-shirts, and several South Carolina knickknacks. Making my way over to the surfboards, I ran my hand across the blue and white 5-foot short that matched my 5'6" height perfectly. Smiling to myself, I tiptoed to the longboards, every once in a while looking at my phone to check the time. I suppose if I had been paying attention to my surroundings, rather than staring intently at the surfboards in front of me, I would have noticed the sales associate came over, or that he had been standing behind me for longer than a minute before he spoke. "Hi, can I help you?" he asked, startling me. I jumped nearly 3 feet. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you." Turning around to face the shopkeeper, I smiled. "You're fine. Can I help you find anything?" he asked again, looking at me with apologetic eyes. "Oh no, maybe later. I have a surfing lesson at 1, so I just wanted to browse while I waited," I replied, looking down at my phone again. "It's nearly 1, so I should probably head over there. It was nice talking to you." Exiting the shop, I mentally scolded myself for my lack of social skills. It was only a few minutes' drive to the beach, and I was thankful when I parked. I grabbed my beach bag and jumped out of my vehicle. I could hear the waves before I saw them, giddy excitement coursing through my veins as I made my way down the wooden ramp to the sea. Scanning the area for my surf instructor, I continued to walk, hoping I would eventually find them before it was time for the lesson to start. Of course, as I was about to turn around and go back, I spotted a small group of several feet away from me. Various surfboards scattered around them as they stood in the sand. Picking up my pace, I ran over to them, hoping I wasn't too late. "Ah, there you are," a man wearing a pair of swim trunks and a lightweight shirt exclaimed, turning towards me. "Sorry," I mumbled, dropping my stuff next to me. "All right, now that everyone's here, let's begin," the man yelled after introducing himself as Daniel. Half an hour came and went as we practiced the pop-up position on our boards and how to paddle out to sea. I knew I probably wouldn't catch a wave on my first time out, but I was extremely excited to get out and do it. Excitement filled me with a giddy warmth that spread through my body, further intensifying my impatience to begin the lesson in the water. It seemed like hours passed where we can jump into the water, but of course we couldn't go deep. Daniel had us go in one at a time, instructing us on the best time to pop up on the board and what we should do when we caught the wave. I watched as Daniel turned my way, motioning for me to take my turn. I paddled towards the wave, turning at the best possible time, and when I felt the water pick me up, I popped up, placing my feet firmly and steadily on the board as the water pushed me further towards the shore. At that moment, I was hooked. By the time I made it home, it was nearly 3, and I was absolutely exhausted. Pushing my front door open, I wobbled into my living room, sand covering my skin and the smell of salt in my hair. I padded into my bathroom and turned the tub's faucet on, checking the water temperature before putting the plug in the drain. As the tub filled, I threw a few handfuls of bath salts, the calming smell of lavender filling the bathroom with its aroma. As I got undressed, I wondered about the man I had met yesterday. I remember the way his brow had knit together when he thought I didn't understand him, and the beautiful silver color of his eyes. Suddenly my cheeks burned, and I shook my head, trying to think of anything other than that stranger. Stepping into the tub, I sunk down, the water flowing over me. I gently brushed the sand off my skin, and I watched it sink to the bottom of the tub. I took a deep breath, melting into the hot water. The relaxing feeling disappeared, and I heard a loud crash, jolting me out of the bathtub. I grabbed a nearby towel and hastily wrapped it around myself before cautiously running towards the sound. As I rounded the corner, I heard someone yell and curse under their breath. Reaching for the closest thing to me, I pushed the bedroom door open, my heart beating hard against my chest as I walked in the living room. And there I saw him, scrambling to clean up a broken lamp. I instantly recognized him as the man from yesterday, although he hadn't been stark naked then. He definitely was now. Averting my eyes, I felt a blush creep up my neck. What the hell was he doing in my house? "Excuse me," I choked out, then cleared my throat and looked up at him, trying not to check him out, and instantly freaking out that there was a naked intruder in my home. "Excuse me, what the hell are you doing in my home?" He jumped up, turning around. I could see the panic written across his face. Why are you naked?" I exclaimed, clutching the lamp more tightly in my hand. "Where are your clothes?" I'm sorry, This is so not how I wanted this to go. "How did you want this to go? What's your problem?" I asked, panic lacing my tone as I cautionally walked towards the couch to grab one of the white throw blankets for him. "Here, wrap this around yourself. Annie, listen, I'm sorry, I'm not mad about the lamp, I said, still clutching the towel against my body. I'm upset because you just came into my home, uninvited and naked. Why are you here? I had nowhere else to go, he exclaimed, his silver eyes searching mine. I'm sorry, I didn't know where else to go. We started off on the wrong foot. Look, my name's Delmare. What do you mean you have nowhere else to go? The oceans are dying, and I had to flee to land. I blinked, searching his face for any sign of lying, but there was none. What did he mean, flee? What was happening? You were the only human I know. I figured you wouldn't mind, but if I'm too much of a bother, I will leave, he said, turning away from me. Human? I asked. What do you mean the only human you know? You had to flee the ocean? He walked cautiously over to me. Without thinking, I tensed and swung the lamp at him in an effort to defend myself from the crazy, half-naked intruder. He caught the shade just in time and pulled it from my grasp, just as I kicked up, hitting his crotch with my knee. I spun around and made a dash towards my bedroom to call the police. Wait, he groaned in protest, but I didn't care. I needed to get away from this crazy person, and I needed the police. Grasping my phone in my hands, I began to dial, only turning when I heard him run into the room. You stay away from me, I exclaimed. Grabbing the closest thing to me, which happened to be a pillow, I lifted it in warning, ready to throw it at him. Don't come any closer. Anna, please, listen to me. I will not hurt you. How do you know my real name? No, don't answer that. I want you out of my house. Get out. I was beyond angry and distraught by now. I couldn't believe this man had decided to break into my home, let alone buck naked. Anna, I'm sorry. Let's start over. He seemed genuinely sorry for what he had done, but I wasn't having any of it. If you don't get out of my house right now, I'm calling the police, I warned, still clutching my towel around my body. Okay, I'm leaving. Just calm down. But before I could scream at him that I was perfectly calm, he ran past me and into my bathroom. I ran after him, then watched him casually drop the throw blanket and jump into the tub. Within seconds, his lower half had morphed into a gigantic silver fishtail. My vision turned black as I fell unconscious next to a being I hadn't known existed until that very moment. I'm going to go ahead and stop there. So that's the first 2 chapters of Waveborn. If you guys liked it, I will leave her information in the link below. Just look up Michaela Whitaker. I believe she's on a few different apps. When I get more information, I'll add to it. This is an adult novel. There are curse words and a few suggestive parts in the book. So, if you don't want to hear that, I will put a warning before. There's only one scene, so I will put a warning before that chapter just so the young ones aren't scarred for life. I hope you like this. It's not really ASMR, but I hope you enjoy.